Let's start discussing about the SAP R3 architecture. So some detailed way we will discuss. Everybody know SAP is the three-tier architecture, right? So this is the presentation layer and this is the SAP layer, right? This is the SAP layer and we have the database here, right? We have the database here. We have the database, it will store the database. So SAP is the three-tier architecture. So like we have the presentation. Here we have the presentation layer. We are here like SAP GUI or so browsers or some other tools to access the SAP here, right? So here we have the SAP. So coming to this is the database. So to discuss in detailed way how the SAP Logon process works here, right? How the SAP Logon process works. So SAP is the R3 architecture. Means R means so real time. 3 means three-tier architecture. SAP is the three-tier architecture here, right? So users can access the SAP systems in two ways, right? One is the GUI and the second one is the web browser, right? From GUI and web browser. So it's called a front end. It's called a front end. In the front end, user front end means your front end, your laptops or our remote server, user PCs. So SAP GUI or web browser is installed, not the application database. So front-end server take the user request, it will passes to the application server. That is what we know, right? Whenever you click in my front-end server, whenever you click server, it will open the SAP application server. So which means to log into the SAP application server, you have to use the you have to use the you have to use the SAP GUI or SAP logon pad. That we are clear, right? Everybody clear on that area, right? So coming to the application server. So what is the role of the application server here? So application server role is to process the user's logic. Means application server is process the business logic here. So it will process the business logic. So business logic, it will process it. So there are the multiple application servers or one application server. Your logic is processed. Suppose your logic is to book the one payment, update the records or something like that. Then your application will process it here. Application is the one of the middle layer, right? So this is the one layer, this is the one layer, and application is the one of the middle layer here. So database, it will store the data, retrieve the data as per the SQL queries generated by the SAP application. Who will interact with the database? So SAP application will interact with the database. Application will interact with the database and it will pull the data from the database level. It will pull the data from the database level here. So who will initiate the queries here? So uh, application is the will initiate the queries from the here. So if I go little bit more about the architecture wise, so why? Because this is very important. How the SAP is opening from SAP GUI to how you are getting the opening. So normally some users they will open some tools, or normally some user they will open the browser to open the any one of the application, Redbus application, IRCTC, whatever the application, passport. So we will open the browsers, right? Multiple ways we can connect to the applications, either apps in your mobile phone, you have the apps, right? So through apps also, you are able to connect it here, right? So there are the multiple ways to connect it, right? Same way, same way. So SAP also, we can connect to the multiple ways to connect it here, right? So let's start discussing more about the application server instance here, right? But because here, this is the instance which will process the all the user request and everything. So here in the application server, we have the dispatcher, right? So we have the dispatcher. This is the dispatcher. Let's take color different and write it here, dispatcher. Right? So what the dispatcher will do? Dispatcher will maintain the all the request into the queue and order in the FIFO order. Dispatcher will maintain the all the request into the order here, right? So request, suppose the example request. So dispatcher will maintain the all the request into the order. So dispatcher has some internal mechanisms to keep the to keep the request into the order, to request the, so in the order here. So it will process the request into the first in, first out to the available dialog work process here, right? So then where is the dialog work process here? Where is the all other work process are available here? So if you see the work process architecture, so then here you can see the here it is the work processor is available here, right? Work process is available. Let me take the different color coding here. In the work process, each and every work process here, there is a task handler. Inside of the each and every work process, I am explaining about the task handler here. That is called the task. Okay, task handler. Okay, each and every work process we have the task handler here. So then in the task handler itself, each and every work process there is a some internal memory and task handler here. So the work process has some internal logic here to process your request here. One is the screen interpreter, then ABAP interpreter, right? So here I can say like screen processor, screen. So let me write shortcut processor. Okay, screen processor. Then we have the ABAP. So ABAP interpreters. Okay, each and every work process. We know work process will process the our request, but inside of the work process, what exactly will happen means, let me explain here. DB interpreter. Okay, so then so each and every work, these are the work process here, right? Work process 0 or 1, whatever it may be. So it's a work process here, right? So then let me take it here. Then in the work process here, I can make it like these all are the shared memory. These all are the memory. So these all are the shared memory, shared memory here. Memory. So memory, it is the memory here. Then this shared memory is divided into the, so two types here. Here it is the role area user context here. Role area user context here. Role area user context. Let me take it the different color coding. User context means user related, all the details are available here. User related, all the details are available here, right? Then here we have the buffers. Then we have the application buffers here. Application buffers. Here we can see buffers in ST02. Okay. So here we have the buffers here. So program buffer, calendar buffer, CA buffers are available here. Buffers, application buffers. Okay. These all are the buffers here. Program, CA, calendar, all the buffers are available. Then this is the database here, right? This is the database, DB we know here, right? So now exactly here, what exactly will happen here? Exactly what will happen here? Okay. So let's start discussing about the user request flow. Okay. This is blue gray icon is the user request flow. Then whenever user initiate any request, whenever user initiate any request from GUI, it will go to the dispatcher, right? Dispatcher will maintain the dispatcher dispatcher will maintain the request in FIFO order. First in, first out. Dispatcher will follow the first in, first out. It will find the which work process free, then it will assign to the that work process here. So in that work process, the task handler in the task per user request, the work process is assigned to the user. One dedicated work process will be assigned to the user here. So whenever user log into the system, then here dialog work process is assigned to the user. If the user runs anything report in the background, backend work process, update some modifications, update work process is assigned. So as per the section user action, the work process is assigned, but the first work process is assigned to the dialog work process here. So once the once the user is assigned to the dialog work process, then so so this is the work process. User here dispatcher is assigning the request to the one of the work process here. Here the task handler, what the task handler will do here, what the task handler will do whenever you work process is assigned, the task handler will go and check the user credentials, whether you are entering correct user credentials or not, it will check it out here. This procedure is called the roll in. Roll in means work process going to the user context, checking here, going and checking here. That is called the role in memory, role in context. So immediately you won't get the screen to execute the transaction codes here. What exactly will happen here? The task handler will go and check into the user context here. The task handler will go and check into the user context. Okay, this user is valid. Then just give the response back to the again task handler to process the user request here. Then immediately the screen interpreter will take your logic, will assign to the ABAP interpreter. Then ABAP interpreter will interrupt your ABAP language code, then will convert into the database, it will assign to the database interpreter. So then here the database interpreter, so will interrupt the your logic, will convert into the so database language format, means it will convert into the database language format. Then it will check your data into the buffers. So if the data already exists in here or not, it will check into the buffers. So we have the application buffers here. Program buffer, CUI buffer, screens, calendars, all those things are available here in the buffers. So it will check the data in the buffers here. So it is not exist here. It is not exist. Then so database interpreter will go to the database level, will check into the database level, whatever the logic you have given, it will check, and so yeah, it will pull the data here. Then one copy of data will assign to the one copy of data, it will roll out. One copy of data will assign to the buffer. It will store into the buffers, right? Then it will give the response back to the user again. How it got it here? Same way how it got the request to the, so you task handler, task handler will assign the task to your user request. Then screen interpreter ABAP interpreter, database interpreter. Then DB, it will check in the buffers. If you have already data available in the application server, then immediately it will pick up here, then it will give the response back to the user. If no data in the buffer, then it will go and check the database level. It will assign the request. Again, it reverse order. It will send the data to the your your user request here. Suppose example, if you see here, double click it, then you will get the SAP user screen here. Then now you one of the work process is assigned it to you. Now you got the screen means. Now you need to enter the password here. So no, it's not checking. Why? Because here it is validating your request into the role in user context here. Role in user context here. Role in user context, it is checking here. So role in user context, it is checking here. So which means your data means whatever the data you entered is wrong. Then if you entered the correct one, then now work process is assigned, one task is assigned to you. Then when you enter the any transaction code, what will happen? Suppose if I take the PA30, then it will open the HR data and everything, personal number, salaries, so net payroll, everything, it will open it here. So how much time it's taken here? 62 milliseconds it's taken here, right? 62 milliseconds here. So then what will happen here? So if anything you execute very long, suppose the data already exists in the buffer, suppose like if you execute the VL0 to N, so everything is opening fine, right? It's very speed here. Why? Because the data is available in the buffers here. You can see the buffers. So these are the buffers here, ST02. These are our upcoming transaction codes here, right? Buffers here. So here it is there in the data in the buffers. It will get the data. It will give the response back to the user. In case of data is not available here, what will happen? Suppose if I execute the sales material related, see here how much time it's taken here. So it's taken the 344 milliseconds here. So if I execute again, how much time it's taken here? So it's a 16 milliseconds here. So the response time depends upon the response time, the data getting checking here, the data, we are getting the data here, right? We are getting the data here, depends upon the, so depends upon the response time. So data, if available, data is available in the buffers, immediately you will get the response. If not, then it will go to the database. It will go to the database level. It will check here. Then it will give the response back to the user here. It will give the response back to the users here. So this procedure is called the, this procedure is called the, so SAP, this procedure is called the SAP Logon. How the Logon process and architecture works means this is the way here, right? So let me take it here, one step by step here, how the Logon process work means. The first is the user, right? User, SAP GUI. Then here, SAP GUI, it will take. So SAP GUI. Otherwise, where can I write it here? Yeah, SAP GUI. Then GUI to dispatcher here. GUI to dispatcher. Then dispatcher to, so work process. Within the work process 0 or work process, maybe like take the task handler. Then screen processor, SP, then AI, ABAP interpreter, database interpreter, then so buffers, check in the buffers, then DB processor, then give the response back to the users here, reverse order again. So this is the order of, this is the order here from user interface to the up to, this is the order. It will process your user request here. It will process your user request here. This is the way it will process the user request. This is the way it will process the user request to the up to here it will come. Up to here it will come, right? Then once it got the data from the database level, in the reverse order it will go, and one copy of data it will keep into the buffer. Then it will same way it will go in response back to the users here. So in the upcoming, we may discuss about the response times also here. How much time it's taken for the each and every step here. So there we will check each and everything here. So buffer sit ratio, how the buffers are storing the data, how the validation, what is the memory, shared memory, what is the role in user context here. So database interpreter, these are the in each and every work process there is a internal mechanism is called the task handler and screen interpreter, screen processor, ABAP interpreter, database interpreter here. So database interpreter here. So here each and everything it will process here, right? So at the end, so user data is removed from the shared memory. Once the user is logged out, the user data is removed from the memory. This is the memory here. So that memory will be available to the other users. Then this process is called the rollout. This process is called the roll out here. This process is called the rollout. This process is called the roll out here. Roll in. Roll in means so task handler will go and check into the role area in the role user context and everything. It will check. So which means it is assigning the some amount of memory to you. Here we can check it out. What is the memory? How much memory is assigned to the your user and everything here? Why? Because authentication is done. As soon as user context authentication is done, it will assign to everything here, right? This is the one here, right? So then this is the how the SAP Logon process works. So and everything, this is the one here. Okay. So each and every process, we won't see anything here. So internally, we internally this will happen, but we know only log into the SAP system, then executing the transaction code, that will process the your logic and everything that we know. That only we know here, right? So remaining all those things we are not required here, right? So but internally what will happen means this is the way it will happen everything here, right? So this is the internally how the each and every work process will work here. Just want to explain this one. So that's fine. So let's start discussing about the some other why since we have one more demo system is available here. So we can discuss on this one while our network is back.